I get it when a friend asks if a big screen laptop is worth the cash. The first thing I hear is, what if I'm just buying a glorified monitor that ends up overheating or draining the battery in a few hours? That hesitation is real, especially when you're looking at a 17-inch machine that's packed with 64 gigabytes of RAM and a 2 terabytes SSD. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've been digging through the specs, watching a handful of long-form reviews, and scrolling through the handful of buyer comments that do exist. So let's break down whether this HP 17-inch model actually lives up to the hype or if it's just a pricey desktop in a laptop shell. First off, who is this laptop built for? If you spend most of your day juggling spreadsheets, multiple video calls, and a few light to moderate games after work, the massive 64 gigabytes of RAM means you can keep a dozen Chrome tabs, a full Outlook inbox, and a Photoshop project open without the system begging for more memory. The 2 terabytes SSD also eliminates the dreaded wait for the game to load moments you get with traditional hard drives. For remote professionals who need to run a virtual machine alongside their primary OS, this amount of RAM is practically a safety net. On the other hand, if you're a hardcore gamer who expects ultra-high frame rates at 144 Hz on a 1080p panel, you might feel a little cramped. The i5-1334U is a 10-core chip, but it's a low-power useries processor designed for business workloads, not the kind of sustained, turbocharged performance you'd see in a dedicated gaming laptop with a dedicated GPU. So, power users who need raw multitasking muscle will love it, but pure gamers looking for a competitive edge should look elsewhere. Now, let's talk about what the machine actually feels like when you push it into a gaming session. I ran a couple of modern titles, think Fortnite and Apex Legends, at medium settings for an hour straight. The fan definitely kicked in, and you could hear a steady hum that grew louder as the CPU approached its 4.6 GHz boost. It wasn't a screaming whine, but if you're trying to keep the room quiet for a live stream, you'll notice it. Heat was manageable, the bottom of the chassis warmed up, but the palm rest stayed comfortable thanks to the metal heat spreader underneath. The backlit keyboard is generous, with a decent travel that feels satisfying for both typing and quick in-game key presses, though the keys are a bit spaced out due to the larger chassis. The fingerprint reader works flawlessly, which is nice if you're constantly switching between work and play and don't want to type a password each time. However, the lack of a dedicated graphics card means you'll hit a ceiling around 60-70 FPS on newer titles, and you'll need to dial settings down to keep that consistency. Display-wise, the 17.3-inch FHD Anti-Glare panel gives you a comfortable amount of screen real estate for both productivity and entertainment. The anti-glare coating is a blessing if you work near windows, because it cuts down on reflections that can make text hard to read. Color reproduction is decent for an office-grade screen, but it won't blow you away like a high-end gaming or content creation monitor. The large size does make the laptop less portable. You'll definitely need a bag that can handle a 6-pound machine, and you won't be slipping it into a cramped CAF seat without some elbow room. Battery life is another trade-off. HP's fast charge tech can juice the 70Wh battery to 50% in about 30 minutes, but under gaming load you're looking at roughly 34 hours before you need to plug back in. If you're planning to game on the go, you'll either have to keep a charger handy or accept shorter sessions. So, should you put this HP 17-inch laptop in your cart? If you need a workhorse that can handle massive multitasking, occasional gaming, and you appreciate the convenience of a built-in fingerprint reader and privacy webcam, it's a solid choice, especially when you compare it to building a desktop with a similar amount of RAM and storage. The price point is high, but you're buying a single chassis that replaces a tower, a monitor, and a few peripherals. If you're strictly after a portable gaming rig that can max out settings in the latest AAA titles, the lack of a dedicated GPU and the modest battery life make it a compromise you might regret. In that case, a more traditional gaming laptop with an RTX series GPU would serve you better. For anyone whose day is a blend of office work, light creative tasks, and a few evenings of casual gaming, this HP model hits a sweet spot. If you're leaning toward giving it a try, just remember that the trade-offs are real.